Welcome to Social Work Sunday Tea. I am Shakia Houston. Today is a great day to be alive and well. Listen, it is November 13th. Yeah, it's the 13th, 2022. Listen, make sure you like, subscribe, make sure you put it on your pages. Make sure you share, because it's a great day to have information and all that good stuff. Today we have a special guest here, the president and COO of Wallace Broadview Funeral Home. If you'd like to introduce yourself and let everybody know who you are, all that good stuff.
Sure. My name is Rory Momon, and like Shakia said, President and CEO of Wallace Broadview Funeral Home, located in Broadview, Illinois. Um, that being said, that's who I am.
Okay, cool.
Not too much else to it.
Give us a little history of Wallace Broadview. You guys are you've been there for a long time.
Sure. Oh yeah. My our firm was actually founded and started by my uncle Vernon L. Wallace, legend in the funeral business in Chicago and nationwide, and him along with my auntie Gladys Wallace, founded Wallace Broadview Funeral Home. Originally located on the west side, and eventually located to the western suburbs. We've been there since 1992, so I've been a staple in that community since 92, a little bit over 30 years. So, and I'm left holding the fort down, so trying to keep it going, keep the legacy going best I can.
Absolutely. So what made you get into, I guess, providing funeral home services, like a funeral director? Like what? Like, did you like wake up? I'm gonna be a funeral home. I mean, of course you had influences, but like, what made you want to just actually like, okay, I'm gonna do this?
Well, I mean, like I said, I didn't grow up wanting to be a funeral director. Well, I don't know. It do date back to like my teenage years, but just actually having family in the business and being around it and seeing the impact that he and she had on the community and like how much they help people and the service they provided kind of gravitated me towards the business. But I actually wrote back in grammar school, I was in a career essay contest at 13 years old about my profession, and I wrote about being a film director. And I came actually in second place, but I did write about it back in the day. So I kind of manifested it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Like, were you like in the beginning, were you scared or were you what was
I
it like?
Scared. I wouldn't say scared in the beginning. I mean, starting young and being around it, as a young folks, sometimes fears you have fears of certain things, but just being around that, no, I wasn't actually scared. I was kind of nervous and knowing if I could do a good job at it, but I wouldn't say scared, no.
Okay. So like what schooling did you like if people want to be a funeral or open up a funeral home, well, be a funeral director, like what is the qualifications to become one? I mean, I know you have to go through schooling, but like what type of schooling or
Right, definitely. Well, most states, and especially Illinois, you are required to be a licensed funeral director and embalmer. So of course, you have to go to school and get your certification. So I did. You have to go to college first, of course, get some credit hours. Then you have to attend accredited mortuary science program, and then obtain your mortuary license, mortuary science degree and license. So I did go to Washington College of Mortuary Science. It's a local school.
Okay. Yeah, I heard of Washington. I was like,
it's in the area. So Malcolm X, which is a good school as well, and Washington College, they both offer the mortuary science degrees in Chicago area.
Okay, cool. So what makes your funeral home stands out from other funeral homes?
We're kind of traditional based. We based off tradition. We offer like traditional funeral services. I mean, we kind of got a small staff, so you kind of get a more of a family atmosphere or more hands-on feel with our firm. I know some other places not, throwing shade at nobody else, but you got larger firms, but you might not get as much hands-on experience. You might, see some person one day, a different person next day. But we got like a more family hands-on feel, I would say. So I think that helps us stand out.
Okay.
And just the more, as far as services goes, we try to put out the best product as possible and adhere to our family's needs as best as possible. So
absolutely,
I think it helps us stand out.
Yeah. Are you like as a being in the field for this long, are you kind of like desensitized for like as far as like funerals and because I know for me, like in the mental health, because it's more mental than, I
Mhm.
mean, it was physical and mental, but
Yeah.
for me, I sometimes when I was in long-term care with psych patients, I kind of like was desensitized, like, oh, that's normal. Okay. Yeah, all right, go on. All right, let's do this, let's do that. And like it doesn't phase me. Like
Yeah.
in mental health world, it's kind of like in for the normal person, it's like chaotic. Like
Mhm.
everything is like but for me, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, they do that. Yeah. So
Mhm.
hmm. So
I
what
feel
about
you.
you?
Well, I would say desensitized, but I mean, dealing with it every day, we kind of got to treat it as a job. But we do
Yeah,
see certain things, and emotionally, death is emotional for everybody, and
yeah,
so we do grieve for our families, and we do sympathize in what they're going through. But at the end of the day, you still have to be strong. The funeral business, you have to be a strong-willed person to get in this business anyway. But just to see it on a daily basis, you definitely have to have some kind of, I don't know, release from it. Or like you can't be too emotional because you come to work crying every day because you see you deal with emotional people in most situations every day. But I mean, it's hard to explain. Just I mean, because we all human, we all have to deal with death one time or another, whether it's our
yeah,
family or friends.
yeah.
But just being in the business every day, I won't say desensitized, but it's like a release you have to have, like a separation you got to have from
Mhm.
death or dealing with death, or you'll just go crazy or to be too emotional. But
Yeah.
I, I'm,
Someone, yeah. No, no, go
but
ahead. No, no, no.
to answer the question, I'm gonna say desensitized, but I do have a level of like, distance. I might look at death differently from the next person, but at the end of the
Yeah.
day, I mean, it hits home, just like we would for the next person.
Yeah. Someone said, did you have to train to be desensitized? But you just
Nah,
answered that.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, training. So you got to. It's a mental thing.
Yeah.
So
Like it
nah,
really it really goes with your mental health. So that's kind of like, yeah, mental health and like as far as like dealing with people that are grieving. Yeah, like that's a whole different thing because you deal with people that are angry, mad, sad,
we
yeah,
deal with
and
different different emotions on a daily basis. So
yeah,
we do.
definitely.
We have some kind of. I won't say desensitized training or mental training, but going through school, they do teach us how to to deal with different personalities and deal with the public. But I wouldn't say it was definitely like training towards being desensitized to it. But we get
Yeah.
all different types of training in school.
Okay. Cool, cool, cool. But it's nothing like a human, it's all about human connection. Even in therapy and
Mhm.
mental health, that's what it's all about. And as a funeral director, I can just imagine you have your pros and cons, right? We know
Yeah.
about the pros. You're giving service, doing things like that. So what are some of the cons of being a funeral director?
It's a few. I mean, some of the cons. That's a good question. I don't know. I think some people think we proud of people dying, or like we want people to die. Like we walk down the street, and like hoping somebody pass away or not. We don't. It ain't like that. I don't
That's
proud people dying, but death is a part of life. Of course, people gonna
yeah,
die. If you're born, you're gonna die. So this
yeah,
is a type of business where you get in where you're gonna have business some form or another. But I think one of the biggest con is people think we wish or pray on people dying. It's not, and that's not the case.
yeah,
I mean, we don't
yeah,
make people die. We don't force people. We don't go out and hit people beside the head. If you live, you're gonna
right,
die. So that's one of the
yeah,
biggest cons.
yeah.
Another one being a young person. I think they think sometimes people surprised that you have a social life. Um,
Hmm.
you have to be out like, what you doing here? Like, what you doing in this restaurant? What you doing in this particular spot?
Right.
Like we human, so we do have a
Yeah.
life outside of the funeral home. So that's another con. Sometimes people like be surprised that funeral directors are, I don't know what kind of human or normal. So that's one of the other
Right.
cons too.
They were like, "Well, don't you want to be doing some bodies?"
We
You know,
like
like
vampires. We sleep we sleep at the funeral home all day long. No, it don't be like that. We don't spend the night there. We don't stay there all 24 hours a day. We do have a social life or a life outside of the funeral home.
yeah,
So
definitely, definitely. Yeah, you have to
another
because
con,
you have
since we're on the subject, is too people think all funeral directors like money hungry or money grabbers, or we sometimes like car sales. If you come there people think we automatically trying to prey on their sympathy or prey on their grievance. Like we trying to like just get money off of them because of their death. I mean, it might be some people out there like that, but as a film director, no, we don't
Yeah.
we not all like that. So
Yeah,
that's another kind
definitely.
people think we kind of
Yeah.
trying to get
You're
over on
just
people.
trying to get my money. You try to add on. I put a
So
little flour on there. Now you want to add, and people like people don't understand. Like it costs. Like when you die, it costs you. You
mhm.
know what I'm saying? Even it costs you to when you get in the world, it costs you. It
Yeah, it
costs you
costs to
something.
get born, it costs to live, and
Yep.
then it's gonna cost you, unfortunately, when you pass away. So it's gonna be
Yeah.
a cost. Anything with life is gonna be a cost.
Yeah. 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 That's a great way to look at it because it is. It is a cost.
Mhm,
What are okay? So the funeral home. Okay,
mhm.
so you have all these services. Can you name some of the services that you provide for like funeral? Okay, but we did before we got on the live. We talked about how in our community, the Black community, we
Mhm.
don't prepare. We don't prepare for death. We just kind of like living in the moment.
Yeah,
And um how can you what can you recommend as far as for our generation? Because we walk in there, some if you haven't been, around that, um, you don't know what to do, how to
mhm.
handle stuff. Um, yeah, we just don't in this generation, we don't really know. We don't know what to do. Like we don't know
Yeah,
about no insurance. We don't know about like, okay, the death certificate. Okay, you got to get the coroner. You got to transport the body. We don't know nothing. We just know mom and them died. That's all we know. So
yeah.
what you
Right. I think our generation just used to, as we were young, just showing up to the funerals. We know our mothers and father, grandparents, they handled the arrangements. We just showed up to the funeral and just tell us what color the way, what
yeah
suit we gonna be there. But now that we having to start to bury our own
yeah
loved ones and people that's older than us, it's a little different.
yeah.
I mean, interrupt the question,
No, go ahead. You
but as
can.
far as preparation, it's basically, I think the main thing is life insurance to start off with. I think a lot of our generation
Yeah
don't know the significance in a proper life insurance policy
yeah
and what that will help your family in the long run,
yeah
dealing with death and unexpected deaths, things like that.
yeah
So that's what I think the number one thing is to prepare for you know, for funerals are make sure your loved ones, next of kin or immediate family have life insurance and yourself.
yeah
Um, so that'll help in the long that'll help a lot
yeah
with preparing for a funeral.
yeah
But yeah, just like back in the day was used to our grandparents and things like that, burying us. But I think our generation, are not used to having to be thrust into that situation to have to bury alone. But main
yeah.
thing is having the proper life insurance policy to when that time comes.
Okay. So like what happens like it's our okay, you do have a life insurance policy
Mhm.
and mom and them died. So we just bring the insurance policy up there like here, pay for it or I mean, just give them a sell because a lot of people they don't know. Like I
Yeah, yeah,
know, like
right,
if
right. So
yeah,
yeah, I got you. Yeah, so far as life, I mean, it's a couple of things. So sometimes when it comes to funerals, you have to have certain people in order in position to handle your services. Because some people think just my family can take care of it once I pass. No, you have to have next of kin. When it comes to control of somebody handling your disposition,
yeah.
it goes in order of kinship.
Okay.
And a lot of people think just well, I'm gonna come in and make arrangements. I can control what happens because I'm paying. No, it don't work like that.
Yeah.
In Illinois, legalities too that you got to go by. You
Okay.
have kinship, next of kin, which is a spouse, adult children,
Okay.
parents, things like that. So if you want someone to handle your arrangement, I think you should have a proper power of attorney over healthcare that can
Yeah.
control decisions.
Yeah.
You have to designate a beneficiary over a life insurance policy. You'd be surprised how many people come in with an insurance policy, but didn't have a proper beneficiary.
Mm-hmm.
You have people that have beneficiaries that passed 15, 20 years ago, and then you have to start. And that creates a problem.
Yeah.
So it's basically, getting your affairs in order, wills, trust, life insurance
Yeah.
policies, having the right people in place to take
Yeah.
care of your funeral wishes and your disposition once, that time comes.
Yeah, definitely. Because I done seen, I done seen some people fight over the policy.
Oh
Somebody
yeah,
else got a policy. Then y'all trying to, you know what I'm saying? It's a whole big mess. Not even knowing, like, not the transition before they pass away.
right.
That's another thing. That's
Yeah,
a
you
whole
get
other thing. You know what I'm
you got
saying?
people hiding insurance policy, don't want to tell nobody about the
Listen,
policy.
this is real. Like people, like
Oh yeah,
no,
no
it's
shit.
real. Like if they put them on hospice, then here come everybody from South Africa want to
Mhm.
come to the wherever they are, the hospice, the nursing home. Everybody want to be the power of attorney of healthcare. Oh, I want to be the beneficiary. Well, do they got insurance? Not insurance. Insurance. They got insurance. You know, things like that. And everybody come
Yeah.
out to, oh, I want this. I want that. So it is great to have a will and testament. It's great to have the power of attorney, beneficiary. You got to have that because we see this. I see this too much, too
Oh yeah,
often.
all the time. Oh
Yeah,
yeah. So
yeah,
yeah, like you said, with and like you say, when you get a designate, especially when you got multiple children and things
yeah,
like that, you have people, you don't want to create rifts and fights. So if
yeah,
you designate a certain person to handle your affairs after your death, it will help out things a lot in the long run.
yeah,
And a
yeah,
lot of people don't know too. A lot of power of attorneys, like over finance, things like that, they cease after death, but actual power of attorney over healthcare, if you designate in there who you want to control what happens to your body after your death, you can stipulate that. So it'll
yeah,
be one person, one point person, one person in control of what
yeah,
your funeral wishes and what happens to your body after death. So a
yeah,
lot of people don't, realize you can do that, and
yeah.
that's something a lot of people should look into as well.
Isn't it called the like the other than power of attorney of healthcare, the
Mm.
like the declaration of death? Is that what it's called? Or I just
Yeah, something like that. Well, yeah, you got a power of attorney over.
right,
I mean, it's different power of attorneys, but certain ones are written different, and certain ones
right.
you can control it. What they call a disposition
Okay,
of my
okay,
body upon death.
okay.
So some power of
You
attorneys
made
that
that
stuff
up.
like that.
My bad. I made that up. Declaration of death.
It
I
might be
made
something out there like that too.
yeah. Someone, but it's two other questions. I gotta backtrack.
Okay.
How has the funeral business changed now that you are the president versus when
Mm.
your aunt and uncle ran the business?
That's a good question too. Well, I mean, back then it was more. I mean, we based off tradition, but back then it was really more tradition. You had certain families that dealt with certain funeral homes. So a lot of families you dealt with, you knew them because you have, having dealing with them in the past. And a
Mm,
lot of funerals are kind of done the same. You have a wake, you have a funeral, you have obituary, flowers, same type of deal.
yeah.
But now with dealing with the younger generation, I won't say the younger generation, but a different type of generation, and just the
Mhm.
aspect of the funeral business on the whole, it's a lot of different things involved. Different families may want different things, so you got to be willing to adapt to, dealing with different type of families and different type of religions and things like that, because different, people use different funeral homes all the time now, and just just dealing with a whole different scope
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
being open minded and willing to happen, to do different things. I think back then, like the older generation, they just was used to doing the same thing. It all depends on what funeral home you use. But now you got different people wanting different types of funerals and different things when it comes to funeral service.
Yeah. I was gonna
Mm.
ask you, like, what was the wildest request that you were ever asked?
Wow, this
Yeah,
well,
what's the
that's
wild? You like what? You want me to do what? Because back then they had people sitting up and they had like a car made that's out of the casket. I forget who that was, but I was just like had them standing up. I mean, like
well, that's why I say my wildest questions. I've been a funeral director. I wouldn't say wow, but one of the like bizarre requests was I actually stood a couple of people up. I've had that request to stand somebody up. I mean, I have a couple of requests like people, pet lovers want to get buried with they like pet cremains, like the cremated remains of a pet.
oh,
And this is another request. This person not deceased yet. He told me, I ain't gonna name his name, but he know what I'm talking about. He be looking, watching. He wants me to put him upside down in the casket. Uh, he say when he passed, when he put him upside down in the casket, so when people he ain't like walk past his casket, they can kiss his. You know what?
you know what?
I told him, hey, if that time comes, if you want that request, I might be able to do it for him.
Oh, Okay. So okay. Listen, it's wild. But how do you? Okay, that's another question. But like, how do you stand them up? Like, how do you do all that? I mean, I don't know if you can get into the logistics of it, but that's kind of like, first of all, to me, this is my opinion. That's kind of creepy. Like standing
Yeah,
them up and like even like they had a live weight of some rapper and he was just standing up. Like I just think that's just like creepy. And then he didn't even look the same. He looked like clay, but it just didn't look. It just didn't look
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Like, yeah, put a rope around him or something. Like, I
Well, it's
mean,
unusual. Well, it's different ways. I mean, the two requests I had, they were actually in the casket. They weren't like just standing up, chilling in the side.
oh,
They were the two. I've seen that before, but
yeah,
we just can't basically had to position the casket a certain way.
okay,
You did have to secure the body inside the casket, but it
right.
was just the casket was adjusted a certain type of way that it appeared that the person was upright and standing up.
Oh, like Dracula type thing.
Yeah, something.
Okay, so that's the only thing that came to mind. Okay, okay. So I have another question. So,
Sure.
what do you do if two people have life insurance on one person?
Well, I mean, it all depends. I mean, life insurance is good as long as it's valid. You can cash your life insurance policy independent, no matter who has the owner life insurance policy, who's the beneficiary. But you have to provide one of those policies to the funeral home to pay for the funeral
Right.
expenses.
But don't they
So
need a
I
death
mean,
certificate to cash out?
yeah, definitely. You definitely need a certified death certificate to get your cash payments on most insurance policies. Not all. I won't say all, but most insurance
Okay.
policies, you have to provide a certified death certificate. I mean, you have different type of
Okay.
life insurance policies. I'm not a life insurance salesman, but just
Yeah,
experience
yeah,
with
yeah,
different
yeah.
life policies.
That's
You have
that's
different type
another
of policies.
podcast.
You got mutual companies, you got whole life companies, things like that.
Yeah,
Some companies you can call up like so and so passed. I'm the beneficiary. I just want to. Then they'll take your
yeah.
word for it. But most insurance companies, you have to provide
They want-
some type of proof of documentation, which is a death certificate.
Right, right, right. Someone said, how much does it usually cost to start a funeral home?
How much does it cost to start a funeral home? It all
Yeah.
depends where you at. I
Okay.
mean, if you want to
Oh,
build from the ground, I mean, I heard some funerals start from the ground up to build like $1 million, but if you purchase another funeral home, it depends.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That was good. That was a good question. Yeah. I don't want no funeral home. But okay. So walk us through like the steps as far as preparing for a funeral. Like they get there, they get to the funeral home. I'm just doing a
Uh,
scenario. They get to the
uh-huh.
funeral home, distraught, of course. Okay, what are some of the steps? Do you have like a minister? You got a grief counselor to be like, okay, to be there to like actually support them. Like, what do you do? Like the filling out the paperwork as far as like um choosing a cemetery, things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the first step is identifying who's in charge. That's all they, because you get some families, everybody want to step up and be the point person, be in control, but
Yeah, and ain't nobody got no
legally,
money.
right? Legally,
Mhm.
you got to find out who the next of kin is. So who the person in charge, whether it's a spouse, children, like I was saying before, spouse, children, parents, things like that. They have to sign a release giving the funeral home permission to take possession of their loved one.
Right.
And then yeah, that's when you get into if you're part of a church home, you know, you're good pastor Spiller. You ain't got all pastors like yours. You can call him. He'll walk you through things. Some people kind of
Yeah.
be, all over
Yeah.
the place. So you first
Yeah.
have to find out what type of service you want to have: funeral,
Right.
burial, cremation.
Right.
Basically, giving the funeral home permission to pick up your loved one first, and then sit down with the funeral director, kind of starting from scratch, getting his or her professional opinion on what type of service you want.
Right.
Things like that. You have to figure out where you want to have the funeral, what burial location, things like that. Things you sit down with the funeral director and kind of discuss and go over doing funeral arrangements. Like I said,
Okay.
the first thing is identifying who's in control, getting a person picked up, and then sitting down with a funeral professional to kind of work out details.
Okay. Okay.
Mm.
So like you kind of like after that you kind of like, but do you give them a list? They don't know anything about like a cemetery. Like do you give a list of like based on where, it's like location, things like that? Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
we
go ahead.
can. I mean, most families, I suggest, doing a little research. Do you have family members buried at other locations or other funeral homes and, excuse me, cemeteries? And sometimes we'll go from there. But if they ask our recommendations or referrals on things, we got referrals and recommendations on a lot of things. But we try to sit down with the family first to kind of figure out, what type of service they want to do and things like that. But we definitely can help them lead the way or steer them in the right direction, if they need that. And then you got some families coming there you just sit back and they tell you what they want. So,
Yeah,
but we definitely can, help their families in the right direction when we asked upon.
yeah, absolutely. And I know you got a chaplain, Pastor James Curtis Hicks.
Oh yeah,
Say, hey, Uncle Curtis. Yeah, he's a great tool as well. To
oh yeah.
help
So
you
yeah,
out.
yeah, definitely. If you're part of a church home, I definitely stress the families to talk to your clergy or your pastor first before
Yeah,
making any decisions, because they'll help out a lot as well.
yeah,
So I do stress that too.
yeah, absolutely. Okay, someone asked, does your funeral home do anything to complete with funeral home services in areas, or is business so great that there is no need to compete or market? Oh yeah, okay. Does your phone do anything to
Well, I don't
compete?
say. I mean, I don't. I mean, any business you're going to be a competitive business, with one another.
Right,
But I don't go out and try to compete or do match what somebody else do or things like that. In this profession, no, I do market the business. I mean, of course, any business you should market properly,
right.
and then
Mm,
I do that. But I don't. We don't go out and be like, well, this firm over there does that, so maybe I need to do that or
right,
try to do it better than them. No, I do what I do and they do what they do, and if anybody ever in need of our services, we try to provide the best possible services as possible. Whatever the family wants.
right,
And if I
right.
can't do something, I'm not the type of person that say, well, I can do this, I can do that. I'm gonna tell them, no, I never done that, but we can work together, get it figured out. And if that makes you happy and your family happy, I can definitely try to do it and accommodate you.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So as far
yeah.
as competition, I don't look at it as a competition with anybody.
Yeah, I mean, your work speak for itself. So, I
Mhm.
mean, they're like, "Oh, who did the body?" And they be like, "Oh, Wallace did it." I'm like, "Oh, okay then." Because I mean, no shade to any funeral homes or in
Right.
Chicago or whatever, but you want your loved one to look like they sleep. They actually sleep. You don't want them to
Right.
be looking all caked up or.
Yeah, that's the main thing. You want
Yeah, like
when
I was gonna say something.
funeral's all about closure. A funeral
Yeah,
service in itself is all about closure, and being that's your last time you're gonna see that particular person. So
yeah,
definitely, that's the main thing. That's the first thing, is to have the person looking the best as possible as you can to make that family happy and as much like themselves. You can't always do it, due to
yeah,
illnesses and things like that. But that's
yeah,
the main thing, is having the person looking well and looking like themselves. Then
right.
everything else falls in place.
Yeah, because like some people be looking dead. They look dead. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? And I mean, it's
yeah.
a difference. And I be like, whoo, that And I don't do all this. Like I'll go to the funeral. But I ain't going in looking, and I ain't doing all that because I can't. My nerves too bad now. I deal with the living, not the
I
dead. Like when I met up with you, I was like, hey, I was by the door. I was like, all right, because that ain't my forte, and I just know that, what I'm saying. So,
yeah.
nah. God bless you in your ministry, because I ain't gonna be able to do that. No, 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 no. So, what's the average cost for a funeral?
Average cost. I mean, it varies.
Like,
You got African American funeral industry, and then you got our other funeral industry, but it all varies. But the average cost for a funeral these days, I would say anywhere combined. If you want to do a funeral and burial, I would say on the low end, probably about 10, 12,000, on upwards to like 15,000.
okay, okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's average, because I
Yeah,
mean you
but
want
average, I
the.
would say 12,000. I would say on the average.
Yeah, yeah. So you pretty much
Yeah,
itemize everything as far as what's been like the flowers, because that's a separate entity. The
right.
obituaries, if you want to do something outside of the funeral home, then you got the
Mhm.
family card. That's if you want the family card. And you know,
Right.
this generation, in our culture, we're a little flashy, so we want like the best of the best, and
Right.
there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I'm saying? Horse and carriage. Um,
Yeah, those are extra. And I would
that,
say too, I need to clarify too for a lot of people. People think they get a funeral contract and they see the bottom line. They think all that money is going to the funeral director and the funeral home. That's not the case either. The
mm,
funeral homes and funeral directors have a lot of overhead. A lot of things we combine a lot with our services that we have to pay out, like you just mentioned, flowers, obituaries, printing
yeah,
companies, cemeteries. All
yeah,
that plays a factor as well. So people see a bottom line of a funeral and think, oh, the funeral home is getting all this money, this and that. No, it's not really like that either. It's a lot of things that come together to create one funeral. So
yeah,
that's another
yeah,
thing. That's another misconception that people think like the funeral home is just getting everything that they paid is good, is all going to the funeral home. So that's not
yeah,
that's not true as well.
yeah. Thank you for clearing that up. Yeah, because a lot of people they don't know. Yeah, they know. Because I mean, you gotta, like you said, you gotta call this person, all right, and you gotta pay up front. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, yeah, it's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot. It's a lot to bury people. It's a lot, just the whole. And then once it's over with, and here it comes with the grief. Once the funeral services are over with, you come see a mental health professional. I would say for grief counseling, and pretty much because when the phone calls hit, that's when they're over with. You need people. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? They're
Right.
there to support things like that, but you need people after the funeral is over with, because that's when everybody come. Mom and them from South Africa, uh, Venezuela, or everybody come to pay respects. But then, like when all that said and done, and you in the ground,
Mm-hmm.
you don't hear from nobody no more. And that's when people, they need people. You know what I'm saying? You need a therapist. Like, you need grief counseling to be able to cope and not go through it, but work our way around um this experience, this loss. So that's when the mental health come into play, when it comes down to that. But yes, oh, oh, okay, she did the whole, okay.
We got another question.
No. You done an outstanding job on transitioning the funeral home under your leadership. Yeah, Miss Grace. Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes, yes,
Oh,
yes.
hey, that's my
Yeah.
friend.
Oh, okay. Hey, Miss
Sure.
Grace, how you doing? Yeah, yeah, yeah. So kudos to you. Like, if anybody else have questions, y'all can put it in the chat. It's cool. It's cool. It's cool. But definitely needed in our community to talk about this, because people, they're not just dying old, they're dying younger and younger.
Mhm.
Yeah, and like people our age. So it's like, ugh,
Oh yeah, definitely.
it's a lot. It's a lot. And it's a heavy load to, like, actually seeing somebody your age group, and either gun violence or being sick, things like that. So it's something. So we appreciate your services, like what you do for the community and
Mhm.
abroad. It's so much that goes into that, and I couldn't do it. You just take a special type of person to do that. And that's you.
Well, you got family in the business.
Yeah, yeah, I do, and I don't see how they do that either. But I'll help you out along the way, with your mental
I,
state. But yeah,
that's
but
right.
it has to take a
That's part
special
of it
type
too.
of
I
person.
mean, I think a lot of people or families should deal with grief counseling and things like that. We don't offer it per se at the funeral home. I wish
Not
there was
yet,
right now yet. I wish there's a way we
not
could,
yet.
and I'm looking to work with somebody that we can come in and bring in that can do that. But yeah, grief is hard, and people don't understand sometimes. They need to
Yeah,
actually talk to someone and reach
absolutely,
out to someone and actually get some help. Yeah, because
absolutely, absolutely.
so I know personally. Like I gonna say, my aunt Miss Wallace, she passed. It's going on 2 years now in February, and it kind of hit me different ways. It was a family member. It was
Yeah,
my 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 boss. It was different things that I was different ways it affected me, and I had to
yeah,
reach out and talk to someone as well. To be honest with you,
yeah,
and it helped me. So definitely,
yeah,
I would definitely stress that with other family members,
yeah,
and
definitely. Yeah,
mhm.
yeah. It's a thing, because it's like, okay, they not there no more. It's like life goes on, but it's just like, ooh, like it's just that stinger, like like
Mhm.
it'd be too much. And it's kind of like you replay the funeral, especially the day of their demise. Like You kind of like replay the funeral, you remember dates,
Oh
it's just
yeah.
it's a whole thing. So yeah, but definitely.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. Is Oak Ridge Cemetery just about full, or do you know why they reduced the hours they are open? Oak
Well,
Ridge, wait a minute. It's a good
right
question.
now it's limited spaces available at Oak Ridge Cemetery. That that's
Really?
my friends down there. Yeah, yeah. Right. They working on getting some more areas and more spots available, but definitely the spots are limited. I would say out of graves, but the spots are limited. That's the best way I can put it.
So do you think? Okay, this is another question. Do you think that you should pre-order? Not well, not pre-order.
But that's, I mean,
Okay, yeah, like
prearranged,
yeah, prearrange
prearranged,
and like
pre-order is about the same thing.
okay, yeah, yeah. Do you
I
pre?
do stress the people. I do stress
Huh?
the. I do stress the people they should pre-purchase the plot, especially if you want to
Okay,
be near or in the same cemetery as a loved one. I do
okay,
doing arrangements to tell families that that's something you should think about. You can
okay.
pre-arrange a funeral as well, but
Right, right,
definitely
right, right.
you want to, you know, graves are like property is locate like it's like buying. I won't say quite like buying a house,
It
but
is.
you actually buying deed to a piece of land. So
Okay,
definitely, if you don't purchase the land before somebody else do, they can get it before you do. So you want to definitely purchase that plot next to your loved ones or in the area with your loved ones if that's some area you want to go to. But the
okay.
cemetery not going to just assume like we're not just going to automatically hold it for you because you buried your
Yeah.
mom, your spouse there. You got to actually put put some money on the wood to
Right,
make sure you
right,
got the spot per
right,
se.
right, right. Yeah, because like some people say, oh, you shouldn't do it, but it's like if you want that spot, then you should. But they don't bury like because that's another thing. Like people think that because of another cemetery, you burying people on top of people, and
Mm.
you can't really locate their loved one. A lot of people they're afraid of that as well. Like are they really there still, or are they digging them up and then throwing the body somewhere else and burning the
Yeah,
casket? You know what I'm saying? Yeah,
yeah. Now most of the
that's
cemeteries I know, I don't. I mean, we had an isolated incident some years back, but for the most part, most cemeteries they not doing that kind of thing. They not
okay.
bringing the bodies up and moving them that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
some cemeteries, if you pre-plan ahead of time, they can't do what they call a double depth grave. They could bury you
Okay.
on top of a loved one. Most times it's spouses,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
most cemeteries don't do that. You have to actually have a location, and they bury some people side by side, but not
Okay.
normally on top of each other.
Okay. Okay. Because don't be digging me up. Because like and then you have we call the mausoleum where you can be put in the wall.
Right.
You just got a lot of and even cremation.
Mhm.
People don't really talk about cremation, but during the pandemic, a lot of people been was doing cremation because you couldn't
Right.
really have a service. That was kind of it's kind of like just straight final, like bam, there we go.
Yeah, that maybe we were having service. It was just on a smaller scale, a much smaller scale. You having like
Yeah,
at one time, when it got real bad, it was like 10, maybe 15 people at one service
yeah,
during the heart of
that's
the pandemic. But yeah, the cremation rate did pick up. I mean, it was escalating before then, but it really did pick up during the pandemic for various
yeah,
reasons.
yeah, yeah. Because everything was on lock. You couldn't really do anything. And I was like, "Ooh, it's not a good time to die doing this."
Right.
Because like you ain't gonna have nobody there.
Yeah,
Nobody.
people was
Yeah,
mad. Like, yeah, nothing we could do. That's how the law was the law at the time, but
right.
it was hard for a lot of people.
Yeah,
Not being
yeah.
to have the type of service that they were used to, and
Yeah,
but
I
one.
mean, and during that time, like because like people were dying of COVID, like it kind of like put you at risk too. Like, I mean, it's pros and cons to that too. Like because
Oh
of
yeah,
people illnesses, you in there, you working on whatever y'all
yeah,
do back there,
yeah. They had us on the essential list. We was essential workers. It was like
Right.
ghost town, but we was coming to work. But yeah, it
Yeah,
was a scary time for everybody, especially in the funeral death care industry, because they were telling us different ways and different things. They was kind of going day by day on how to to treat someone that passed from COVID. So we were kind of in the blind too, but
yeah,
a job had to be done. So we had
yeah,
to risk our
definitely.
health and things like that just to make sure the people we serve was getting
Yeah.
service.
Yeah, I can imagine. Like, I mean, just seeing, I mean, death is death, but like the amount of deaths, kept rolling in. It was something else. I mean, me like working in long-term care and watching these people die, and it's like, oh my God, then the funeral home come pick them, they in mass and all this. It was traumatic. Like my therapist was like, girl, I was like, girl,
Yeah.
it was bad. The on the mind, on the mindset, like
Mhm.
you you watching these people die, then you had a funeral home come pick them up. Then it was just like a revolving door,
Mhm.
revolving door, revolving door. Like I know that had to be something on your mental state as well. You have to keep
Mhm.
up with CDC, you got to keep up, and we did too. But yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, I mean, you can see the stress and anguish, like when you go to the hospitals and nurse homes on the people
Yeah,
that was working in the healthcare industry and the death care industry. You can see it, like it was stressful for everybody. They
yeah,
had to actually deal with the hands on.
yeah, definitely, definitely. But yeah, so I don't want to talk you dry, like my grandma
Oh,
say.
nice.
So we thank you so much for tuning in on, well, coming to be a guest on Social Work Sunday Tea. Your information was valuable for the people, for the culture, and yeah, thank you for serving the people, serving our community and abroad, like I said before, and getting on here and educating us on funeral home and funeral home services, and we got a lot of insight on all what you do and how you help the community in that capacity during their loved one, the death of their loved one. So we want to say kudos to you and congratulations and all that, best wishes to you, and thank you so much for being a part of this platform, this podcast. So yeah.
No problem. Hey, I appreciate you inviting me. I know we've been talking about the last couple of months, but I'm glad I was able to actually come on and speak with you and answer
Yeah,
a few questions. And
yeah.
I know I talk kind of fast and I answer them kind of quickly, but if anybody ever have any more questions, they can always hit us up on our website, Wallace Broadview FH.com, or call us at the funeral home and we can answer and try to educate or answer any questions that you may have in regards to funerals and things like that.
Okay,
And,
cool.
we're always available.
Okay. Y'all heard them. All right. Y'all better call if y'all need some questions asked. Like, so but no, we thank you so much for getting on the live, and I ain't want to hold you too long, but
Oh, no,
yeah.
that's good. Well, the Bears already lost, so it was after the Bears game. So
Right.
I ain't had nothing else to do. No, I'm just kidding. No, it was good. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. Until next time, everybody, you guys enjoy your Sunday, and thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. I'll see you guys on next week. Bye.